Hi, folks. This is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, this time of year, I think it's important to talk about the basics of the gear that we use. And by gear, again, I'm breaking it down. I'm not talking about reels right now, but I think what's important is also the type of weight that we use to fish our plastics. In other words, that weight can be a jig head. And that's the weight is already embedded in the hook, and all you have to do is put your plastic bait on there. But these have changed so much. And what you want to really be aware of is what style shape of these jig heads is going to work the best to make that soft plastic you put on it look real to the fish. Another thing you have to be really thinking about and aware of is how heavy do you want this weight to be? What the weight's going to do is it's going to allow you to cast, and the more weight you use, the farther you're going to be able to cast, but that might not be the right weight to make that lure look right. So you got to be aware of other things that are part of this whole fishing experience. In other words, are you fishing in current? And it's important, if you're fishing in current, that you have enough weight to get that soft plastic down to where you think the fish are going to be. If you use too light a weight, the current's going to just sweep it away, and it's not really going to look effective for what you hope it will do. The other thing that you got to be aware of is no matter what you're using, I don't care what lures you're using today, they're expensive. So you really don't want to lose them, because every time you lose them, that's money lost. So it's important that you try to find a way, if you're fishing in streams with current, that they aren't going to snag. Because once they snag, all kinds of bad things can happen. Number one, you're going to scare the fish that are around them, especially if you try to go and get that snag out. The second thing is once they snag, you're going to put pressure on everything. Because you're going to try to pull and get it out. So what's that pressure going to do? Number one, it could straighten your hook, or it could take the sharp point of it away. And so now it's not going to hook the fish very well. Second of all, it's going to strain your line. And the more you strain it, you get to the potential of when it's going to break. I mean, there's so many bad things that happen when you snag. So you gotta be thinking of all these things when you select the weight of what you're going to use. Now, there's other ways you weight your bait down. You could use split shot that are going to kind of sink it so it doesn't just stay on top of the water if you don't want it up there. And in the early part of the season, you don't basically want your lures to be up on top, because the fish aren't feeding up on top at that time. They're feeding down deeper. They will be more effectively reached if you can get down to where they are. But all these things are so critical. The other way that you can sort of put weight on is by using worm weights that slide down your line, and then they go over the bait kind of, and that they will make it heavier, they'll make it sink faster, and all the things we were talking about. And finally, drop shotting is a way that you can do this. You don't have to be out in the St. Lawrence or doing what the bass pros do. Drop shotting can work very well in any type of water that you're fishing. And what it is, it's very simple. We think it's an exotic way to fish or a newfangled high-tech way to fish. And it kind of is, because it gives you the opportunity to be more precise in the depth that you make your lure go. But essentially what I'm saying is, in drop shotting, you tie a weight at the end of your line. So that weight goes down to the bottom. Then up your line, whatever distance you want your lure to be, you tie your lure on. And it's very simple. Your weight's at the bottom, your lure's up above. Your lure isn't going to be prone to its hooks get caught in rocks and so forth. And it can be a wonderful way to present whatever you want to present. So I think this is really important that you're aware of this. And the final thing here that I want you to be aware of is that tungsten is replacing lead. And it's replacing it for a number of reasons. And it is far more expensive. But lead is dangerous, and tungsten isn't seen to be. Lead poisons the environment. It poisons the fish. It poisons anything that comes into that environment. So it's important you're aware of that, because lead poisoning is a gigantic threat to birds and also to other wildlife. So it's important that you be aware that you now have a choice. If you're fishing in areas, especially in marshy areas or those areas that are part of a wetland, you don't want to be using lead at all. So you do have options, you do have choices, but you have to think about this. And if you do it right, you're going to be a much better fisherman. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.